Hi, Ebenezer Animal Experts. We are continuing today on our project that we are working on to show our informational writing skills and our interesting animal facts we have learned about animals in their habitats. Today, before I start, I wanted to give a few shout outs. I saw and heard about some great research projects that are going on at the Ebenezer Facebook page. I was able to see a PowerPoint project done by one of our second graders, and it was on sea otters, and they had showed their information using a PowerPoint, and I thought that was really a creative way of showing their learning. So I wanted to give a shout out to Alice in Miss Potter's room. I also have heard in conversations with some of my students in our Zooms that they're able to look at the Animal Britannica Animal Kingdom and find some neat information there. Some are even using some videos. Today, my ostrich habitat didn't have enough information for me, and I ended up going to YouTube and finding a animal channel called All Things Animal TV, and it had a video of my ostrich that I was able to do some research with. So Miss Evans gets a huge shout out for her choice board that gave us a great resource of places we could find information about our animals. Those of you that are doing some research other ways and finding other interesting things and presenting that information, we are going to have a place to publish our efforts next week. Next week, on your Zoom meetings in your classrooms on Tuesday and Thursday, you will get to share your project and how you created your information and what animal you studied and found out information, and your actual book, brochure, poster, whatever means you used to present your informational writing, you get to share that in your Zoom class next week. So that is kind of the final step of our work. But today I am working on my second day of my publishing. If you notice, I have my notes over there that I had collected last week during the research steps. Today, like I said, I had to do a little bit more research. My part I was going to writing about today for the habitat, I only had notes that said, I'll put it over here so you can see it. I had only found out for habitat that they live in the wild in parts of Africa, and the parts they live in were the savannas and the deserts. So I had to do some more research, and I realized one of the things that made an ostrich interesting to me was I've seen ostrich farms here in America, and I knew, even my husband was sharing with me, there's an ostrich farm out here in the Leslie community. Somebody raises ostriches on a farm. So I knew that was one other piece of habitat that had drawn me interested and had drawn my interest about ostriches. So even though I found their natural habitat, I wanted to find out a little bit more. So I watched that video and I found out they live in the savannas and the deserts. It's in the flat countryside of Africa, but they also live on the farms here and are raised domestically here in the United States. So I'm going to take that information to put that in my brochure under the second middle part about their habitat. Before I go to start that writing, I did want to give you another reminder of the place that I found some of my other research was All Things. I need to put an S on that thing. I wrote it before I started, and I am doing exactly what you're going to do in your writing, and that is edit and correct my mistakes. So I had the mistake, it said All Thing Animal TV, but it's All Things, I added my S, Animal TV. And just like my writing up here, I might have to go back and do some editing and some revising to make it my best when I show it in the showcase of our Zooms together next week. But today I want to show you how I'm just sticking to the topic of my habitat. Like I saw on that video again, and I know that I'm really interested in the fact that ostriches can't fly. But that doesn't really go in the habitat section. It didn't go in their basic needs. It's not what they eat and drink. That's an interesting fact. So I'm going to save that for my last section. And on Friday, I'm not going to be writing that part with you. I will already have that ready. But that last section is interesting facts, and that's where I would put the part about an ostrich can't fly. So today I am going to work right here in my middle section on the habitat of an ostrich. Okay, and so when I go back to my habitat, I'm talking about the fact, remember, that ostriches live naturally, their natural environment it is in the country, or they originally came from, Africa. So I'm going to write ostriches. Remember, writing is talking through your pencil. So ostriches originally lived in areas like the continent of Africa. And Africa is a proper noun, so I'm making sure that I put that capital A on Africa. That would definitely be one of those words probably that I would bold, just like I bolded or highlighted the word grazes in how they ate. Africa would be one that I would definitely, and I see a mistake, so I would definitely get my boo-boo tape. I added an extra A there, excuse me, was focusing on that capital. And those of you who know me from class know, since this is my rough draft, I would use boo-boo tape here and fix that. I also want to get a little bit more specific in what areas of Africa they live in. They live on plains or flatlands in the deserts and savannas. And most of you hear the word savanna and you think of the city that we know about Savannah, but in Africa, the savannas are those flat lands that almost look like a desert, and they can run through large plain flatlands. So again, I would use my boo-boo tape here or my correction tape to fix my spelling mistake, but I definitely make sure I have my proper noun capitalized, my beginning of my sentences. I'd call them they here because in my first sentence I used ostriches. So a lot of you were really good at the beginning of second grade, and you've built on it, of rereading what you wrote to make sure it sounds right. Ostriches originally lived in areas like the continent of Africa. They live on plains or flatlands in the deserts and savannas. Now, ostriches are also raised on farms. That, of course, is not their natural habitat, but that is a habitat for some of them. Some of them are raised on farms and they never live in the natural habitat of Africa. But I have 3 sentences there, okay? I have one about where they originated from and the types of lands they lived on there. And then I have something to include why I was interested in them is that they live in farms now too and are raised on farmlands here in the United States. Before I finish for today's video, one thing I want to make sure I continually remind you of is this. As writers, you have grown from the beginning of second grade to the end of second grade. This project is showing your very best writing skills. So while I know this is my rough draft and I would not leave that boo-boo or that correction, my words that are research words, for example, savanna and desert, can get confused with desert sometimes. I would be checking those spellings in the research to make sure I've gotten that correct. But I also am going to be very, very careful in making sure that I know my sight words are spelled correctly. I'm going to make sure that my sentences begin with capital letters and end with punctuation marks, that my sentences have a correct number of correct number of words, excuse me. As a second grader, we're not going to write a sentence that says, ostriches are big. You could have written that in first grade. When I get over here to the interesting facts, I'm going to write a very detailed sentence that gives more adjectives and information about the size of that ostrich to show the complexity and how detailed I have gotten as a second grade writer. And our goal for this project is for you to show this off as a showcase of this is how I'm ready to go to third grade and do my great research there. So take your time, make it your best. It's only got 3 parts: basic needs, habitats, interesting facts. Rewrite those, reread those, dig into them and make them your very best. We can't wait to see the great shout out products that we can share with everybody on our Zoom next week. We look forward to finding out about the squirrels and the wolves and the leopards and all the different animals you're researching. Have fun, make it great, and we'll see you again soon.